Hello, welcome to the first edition of what we're calling our full moon sessions, where yours truly, Saul Muerte, cuts the cheese, slices the knife across the throat of the juggler to get into the most topical conversations about what is happening in the world of horror on the big and small screen. We are, because this is the first one, we're going to be delving into 2023 so far. So there's 6 months of fodder to chow down on and get really stuck into. Before we do that, I can't do this on my own. I need an offsider, and each week you'll find one of my human familiars will be joining me to chat through the ins and outs of all things that are horror. And I have the pleasure of introducing you to the first of the members to come on board from the Surgeons of Horror alumni for this current episode, and that's none other than Myles Davies. Welcome aboard, Myles.
Glad to be aboard.
It's good to have you, man,
Hello.
and also because I like to dub you our slasher guru. So like because you do like to kind of tackle those more gorier kind of fun filled fantasies that come out in the mix, and we are going through a bit of a nostalgic kind of revamp with some of these things coming to the fore for the modern generation. So it's kind of cool to have you aboard to tackle what is, as I said, a fairly meaty front end of 2023. So I'm gonna before I meant I've got a list here, but before we get into that, is there anything that off the top of your head that stood out? Because we'll talk about it in due course, but is there anything
You
that tops
know,
your list?
we're talking nostalgic. How can I go past Evil Dead Rise? That was just an absolute cracker for me. I think that's been my horror movie of the year so far.
Yeah.
No, I've seen it a few times now. So
Oh,
we
good
saw
on
it
you.
together. We went to the
We
screening, and
did.
then
We did.
and then I've seen it a couple of times since then. And I just absolutely love it. It's one of the best reboots and next chapters of
Yes.
an old series that I've seen in a long time. So that was definitely a stand up for me. So
Yeah,
um,
I almost want to, and I find that when we do these chats that we are quite like-minded,
mm,
because I would say that the Evil Dead Rise is probably at the top end of my list so far if I was going to be looking
mm,
at it. Um, and I am trying to tally things on my letterboxed page as well, and I'm pretty sure Evil Dead Rise is the one that's up there at the moment.
yeah, right.
Um, and there's a few others there that I think are worthy,
Mm,
but I don't know if they can quite reach or capture the fun that was had in
yeah,
Evil Dead Rise to make it a really top-notch, enjoyable film. All right, so
yeah,
we'll talk about that. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that
yeah.
in due course. Um, First things first, though, I'm going to kick off our first film discussion, which is a film called Smile. Now, if we are looking at any film that started to kind of hit the zeitgeist a little bit, and especially when the trailer hit,
Mm,
there was a lot of buzz around it, and I want to say that this review. So what I'm going to be doing for audiences that are tuning in is we've got all these articles written up of these reviews on surgeonsofhorror.com. So do head over there if you want to see a bit more in-depth kind of look at what we think of these films. But I'm going to be grabbing what we call the prognoses. So it's like the sum up that's written by our colleagues. And this first one for Smile was actually written by Anthony Yee. And he says, so Smile is not very original, but is very well done. And there is the ancient and famous fable taken from the greatest summer blockbuster horror of all time, as said by its director. If I've done my job right for the first 100 minutes, then people won't care that shooting an oxygen tank in a shark's mouth won't blow up the last two. In the last two, sorry. Um, but the point is, as a movie, Smile earns a lot with its reminder that whilst idea is indeed more important, a great idea will never be great without a fitting execution. And that's something to grin about. Um, so I think what he's saying there is that it's a very well crafted film, and I remember having an in-depth
Yeah.
conversation with Ant about this because I felt like I fell in the banks of not impressed with this film. I felt like I've seen it
Me too,
before.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of went in and came out of it and went, what was the buzz about then? Because I
Yeah.
wasn't getting it.
I think there was a
But and
lot of hype about this film, and
yeah,
I had the same. Like I'm sorry, I haven't actually seen the whole film. I got
no,
about 5 minutes into it, and I was like, I'm just not getting it. And then I went
yeah,
back and I watched the short film that he'd done as the basis of it that got him
yeah,
the deal to make the
yeah,
feature. And the short film's kind of original, but it's kind of nice, but it's still like I just don't get how he obviously the director is very good at talking people into giving him money. And um and look, I'm not to say that it's a bad film, but there was a lot of hype, so he's obviously put in
yeah,
a lot of that Eli Roth style showmanship to
yeah,
sell the movie, and they spent a lot more time selling the movie than actually making the
yeah,
movie. You know what I mean?
yeah. I do. There's a lot of fanning of the flames there. And
Mm,
I think to Ant's point though, like there's nothing wrong with the way the film is structured. It's just it doesn't offer anything. Like it's like, well, what and we've all seen that before. So I kind of, yeah, I have to say that it fell quite low in my rankings. Um, Now, swiftly moving on to the next movie that came out, and it's still quite, and this kind of falls under the kind of movies that I said in relation to when we were talking about Evil Dead Rise. Not that I feel like it meets the same higher status that I've given or we have given Evil Dead Rise, but it had another big buzz around it, and that was Megan, which was the Killer Doll movie that kind of came
yeah,
out
yeah.
by Blumhouse. Um, um, and so I can't even remember if this was me that wrote this or not. I feel like it's not. And I forgive me because I cannot remember who wrote the review, but you can go check it out. But to read the prognosis, it says Megan is a fun film for horror buffs. It's not all scary or gory, and as a hook, the premise is a decent one, looking into madness of the titular character, and it isn't all that original, but it works and is very enjoyable. And a lot of that is thanks to the remarkable performance of the two actors, Amy Donald,
Mm,
who is the body, and Jenna Davies, who does the voice, who brings the Megan character to life. That and the animatronics and the design work that went into her. That was a home run too, worth a short victory dance, in fact. I think now I've read that out loud, that sounds like Ant's language, the way he's written.
yeah.
So again, kind of what we're saying is a well-crafted film. I found it quite an enjoyable film to watch, actually.
But the clip's
Um,
good. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like there was enough there for it to, and you can see why there'll be a sequel. Whereas
Mm,
when we compare that to Smile, you kind of, it dangles that carrot of potentially wanting to have a sequel. Whereas with
yeah.
Megan, you kind of go, yeah, I could easily invest my time into that universe again and exploring that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of did what the reboot of Chucky should have done, really.
Yeah.
Um, which I kind of liked. I think it was a good little film, and yeah, it deserved a bit of credit. So it is up there as one of my top movies. But as I said,
Yeah, look,
not
I liked it. I mean,
high.
it was well crafted, but I mean,
Mm.
obviously, treading well worn territory of, the monster gets created, and then turns on on the
Yeah,
creator
yeah.
type thing. And we've seen that with
Exactly.
Frankenstein. We've seen that so
I
many
was
times
just
with
thinking that
Deadly
it's
Friend,
it's
and so
yeah, yeah,
we've
yeah,
seen it a million times before. So you could actually just sit there and count and wait for the moments to happen almost while you're watching it. But they did it very well, and
yeah,
everybody was fantastic in it. The cast was great. They had a great cast. Alison
yeah,
Williams and Ronnie Chung,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
It was all
Exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no, I
it
think
it
they,
was a good cast, and I think they
yeah.
cast the right kind of people in it to pepper it with a bit of humor and drama mixed
Oh,
together.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
I
it was
think
nicely played.
Blumhouse are very good at like just creating good genre films, and it's obviously, this is just one of their good genre films for the mass public,
Exactly right.
basically. I mean, it's
And they know how to do that, don't they? That's the
yeah,
thing. That's what they
exactly.
excel at. They know how to plant. And yeah, we're saying this is an old hat storyline, but they
Yeah.
know how to remake it so
Mm,
that modern audiences will wear that constantly, and it taps
yeah.
into that pulse that the modern audience want to look at. So I think yeah, full credit to them. They
I
know
mean,
what they're doing. I
because
think very
as
well.
horror fans, we sometimes forget that, not everybody has seen every single horror movie ever made. So, some people are coming in fresh to this kind of thing and they go, oh,
That's it.
and I think I was watching a Gogglebox, the celebrity Gogglebox the other night, and they were watching Megan, and they were all just losing their minds, basically. So it's like, clearly
It
not,
is, yeah,
it's for the non-horror fan, and that's essentially what most Blumhouse films are. They're also for the
yeah.
specific horror fan as well, but they're very good at creating films for just that cover a mass audience, basically.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right, and that's what they market it really, really well. And
Mm,
that's a testament to their publicity team.
yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next movie, and we have to truck in quite a lot here because, as I said, we're trying to cram in the 6 months worth of
Yeah, yeah.
noteworthy horror content. The next one comes up from our good friend M. Night Shyamalan, which was Knock at the Cabin. Now, our reviewer was pretty sure this was our friend Oscar Jack who wrote this one. And he wrote, I welcome this third act of Shyamalan's career, where he's leaning smaller, pulpier, and more personally invested. He has been partially funding his films since The Visit, which was released in 2015, after getting swallowed up by the Hollywood system with the colossal bombs of After Earth and Last
Mm,
Airbender. Knock at the Cabin fits the
mm,
bill when it comes to a great Shyamalan film. Questions of faith, great performances from the children, the dedicatedly unnatural dialogue, and a pitch at home in an elevator. He might not have ever reached the heights of Spielberg, but he seems to have truly found the place he loves to make movies. And I think the landscape is better for it. So I think in a nutshell, where Oscar's trying to go with this is that we all know Shyamalan's bag by now.
mm.
Um, and when he is in a space where he is able to just have some elbow room and have a little bit of fun without too much eyeballs on the twist or what's he going to do, how's he going to shake things up. He because he is a storyteller and a natural storyteller, and I think I don't know if you've seen Knock at the Cabin, Miles, but
I
Knock
have,
at the Cabin,
I have.
yeah,
Yeah, I really
uh,
enjoyed it.
yeah, me too. Actually, like it's I found although I kind of predicted where it was going to go, I still was happy to go there and sit in that
Mm,
journey. And I think that comes back to what I was trying to say about how Shyamalan is a storyteller through and through,
yeah,
and he's able to do that. And it was a bit like when his film Old came out.
yeah,
Um, had something there like a kernel
yeah.
of something for the audience to hold on to. So love him or hate him, um, I
Mm.
I feel like I concur with Oscar in that this current period of his work at the moment seems to be an area where he's a bit more kind of free to play a little bit and just tell stories, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge fan of M. Night Shyamalan, and so his early career was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah,
I even thought The Village is still one of my favorite, most underrated films. I was just so disappointed. But you had Lady in the Water or whatever that was, bloody awful film
yeah,
was, Airbender, After Earth, and it was just like I just saw no, that was it. He's gone. But it was when he brought back Split with the Unbreakable trilogy, and it was just that's when it just went next level for me. I
yeah,
still haven't
yeah.
watched the bit actually, but I understand the twist. Somebody's already spoiled it for me, and
Oh
but
no.
And so I still I have no desire to watch it. I'm quite happy jumping in from Split back into his career again. And
Yeah,
old, I
yeah,
didn't mind old. I thought it was a bit of a sort of one trick pony type thing. You
yes, it
got where they
was.
were going. I don't think I'd really need to see it again. But Knock on the Cabin, you knew where it was going. It felt like remember that Matthew McConaughey film Frailty, where there was sort of
Yes, I do.
about the demons and all that kind of thing, and it felt like that there was going to be a twist where everything was real, and it was just like okay, and I was just waiting for that penny to drop, and so I really I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll watch it again, but I enjoyed what they did with it, and everybody was
Yeah,
fantastic in it. But
yeah,
Batista or
yeah.
whatever, Dave Batista is
Dave Bautista
just
was,
finding his
yeah,
own from being a
he
wrestler to
really
this.
is. And when you look at his performance in this and with Glass Onion as well, I feel like
Yeah,
he's starting to prove that he's more than a meathead, right? Um, that
yeah,
there's
yeah.
something there to the way he delicately plays with these very gentle giant characters.
In Bushwick. Oh,
No,
I highly
no,
recommend watching Bushwick.
yeah,
I think it's
okay,
supposed to be like a one-shot film, and
okay,
it's Batista, and it's like riots and end of the world type stuff. And it's really bloody good. I highly
okay,
recommend watching it. It's a low budgety sort of thing, but it's a little indie film. But he puts it in there, and it's a very clever little film. But I
cool.
highly recommend it. For some reason, nobody ever really talks about it, so it's a weird one.
Okay.
But
Yeah, yeah. All right.
yeah.
I'll have to definitely put that down on my
Mm.
list of, of movies to watch. Okay, we're going to shift now into a very, very different beast, and I think I've got this down here because again, Australia sometimes falls a little behind our Northern Hemisphere audience, but this is Cocaine Bear, which again was another huge, huge discussion point, and got a lot of people buzzed, um, mainly purely on the title alone. I mean, there's copycat stuff coming off the back of it already with Cocaine Shark and the like, right?
Oh,
So.
fantastic.
Um, so again, I feel like this was a review written by Oscar. So forgive me if I've kind of not attached the right name to it. A very short kind of prognosis. He says the performance and the writing work in tandem to just sink the film below what is fun and enjoyable, and turning the film into an overly ambitious 95-minute feature in need of a punch up. So I think kind of saying there like it's a bit of a one trick pony again, um, and the cyclical events that unfold are kind of a bit like, okay, what are we going to go to here? Um, I found I was a little bit underwhelmed by the film too. I don't know if you've seen it, Miles,
Yeah, I have.
but it was I kind of watched it and went, yeah, okay. It's a bear that gets high on cocaine. It has the one thing I did like is just seeing oh my god, I know my mind's just gone blank. God, Goodfellas,
Oh,
guy
Ray
in it.
Liotta.
Yeah,
Ray
just
Liotta,
I mean,
yeah.
we're saddened by his
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
loss of him in the
absolutely.
industry. But it was kind of nice seeing him, play up the comical
One more
version of the
time, yeah.
mob time. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, other than that, like the movie was just meh.
Oh, look,
Um,
it was okay.
it, yeah, I reckon
It
it'll be
was
a good
fun.
pizza night movie, right? It's is kind of where it's at. Like I think
Yeah, a
that's kind
couple
of
of bongs and cocaine bear, and you're probably set. I think that's pretty much all
yeah,
you need.
100%, 100%. All right. The next movie was a sequel, not a sequel. It was a spin-off or franchise adaptation, and it was called Missing. So it was a film that was, I think the original, the first one was called Searching. It came out. That one came out a few years back, and it's all done using modern social media kind of
Mm.
correspondence, where somebody is in the search for somebody who's gone missing. Ant went along to see this one on behalf of the surgeon's team and wrote up this to say about it. He says, Missing is a surprising page turner that builds frog in boiling water style very well. So by the time you start to get to the more incredulous reveals, you honestly go with it because they are quite well earned. And you do kind of want to see how it all ends. Otherwise, you won't know what you're missing. Yeah, it had to be said. So I don't know. I this one's a weird one because I haven't actually seen the film, so I'm purely going off the back of what Ant's written here. I did see Searching, the one that had sparked the interest on trying to do a similar kind of style film, and that film was okay as well. It was a pretty average, doable film. I feel like and Ant hadn't seen Searching, which is interesting. So he came in watching Missing.
All right.
My instinct is that it will be pretty much same but different.
Mm,
So will I watch it? Yeah, I'd be curious to see it and check it out. But will I be
mm.
expecting anything drastically different on the page? I doubt it. Have you seen Missing at all, Miles, or is this another one of the
I've not
ones that's
seen either of them, but you know what I did
yeah?
watch the other week as I was on YouTube and I found a making of type thing. It was just a
Hmm.
couple of the filmmakers who made both films, and they were talking about their process and their
Uh-huh.
technical process basically. And they were really like, I mean, they're super low budget, and they just proved what couple of people with some cameras and some edit gear and some graphic know-how can put together, you know, with a solid script. So I applaud them. I think I was fascinated by I mean, it was only a little 10-minute YouTube video, but it was quite interesting to watch, and it made me almost want to watch it. I think I was in the middle of watching some. I've just been going through for the last 4 weeks. I've been going through Mad Men, so 7 seasons of Mad Men. So
Oh,
everything else been has been
wow.
put on hold. So
Yeah, for
so I have
sure. For
well, I
sure.
didn't end up jumping into that, but it reminds me that I should go and watch them because they actually do look quite good and they look quite clever in that
Yeah.
sort of sense. I
Yeah,
think
I get I
somebody else did something years ago, last year or the year before. The Australian people, Daily Ludo Films, did something called Content, which was like a social media comedy film series that was very similar by the looks of
mhm.
it, and
Yeah, yeah,
it
cool.
was all done by like specifically sized so you could watch it vertically on your phone. And it had the girl from Mystic Quest, the Apple TV show, in it, and it was
Yeah.
amazing, and it reminded me a lot of what they'd done as well by telling
Yeah.
the story through posts and through like texts and SMSs and all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, it should be
I
interesting to
think
watch.
as modern storytelling on the screen is concerned, I think if you can do that well and
Mm,
have something to grip you to it, and yes, I have seen Searching, and I have to commend the way they have told that story. I think it's done in a really cool way.
mm,
Um, so I am genuinely keen to still watch Missing. It's not a case of rebuffing. I just don't know if I'm going to come out going that was something new or something different that they were adding to it. So I don't know. We'll see. I
mm.
will get to watch it, but we'll see. All right. The next one's a big banger, right? This was Scream 6. This was the what is now the second installment of their reboot. Um, from Bettinelli, Olpen, and Gillett, who obviously were the guys behind Ready or Not as well, which is another awesome film. If you haven't seen it, go check that out.
Mm. Great
So
film.
I'm pretty certain I was the one that wrote the review for this, so I'll see what I said. Um, I put yes, Ghostface is back to entertain and delight with some delightfully macabre kills. There are even some tension-wrapped moments, most notably the subway scene, but the film suffers in the final act and the inevitable reveal feeling a little bit of a letdown. If rumors abound that a third installment into the sequel is in the works, then Bettinelli, Olpen, and Gillett will need to break the mold and force the franchise into a brave new world. Uh, so this is an interesting one as well because I've been reading a lot of the buzz following it, and people are saying this one was better than Scream
All
5.
right.
I disagree.
Yeah,
Um,
I disagree too.
I found that there was no danger element at play,
Yeah.
um, especially and unfortunately, if you're tuning in, there will be spoilers because we're talking about movies that have
Yeah.
gone out, right? But just to blanket that for the moment, spoilers. the the quartet, I forgot what they dubbed themselves now. They all survive at the end, which makes me just go. Eh. And I know, look, Scream was a bit famous for doing that because the original trio were always there at the end, right? But this is what I mean by if the third one comes out, which is pretty inevitable, they're gonna have to do something really different to
Yeah.
actually put these characters in jeopardy and make us go, shit,
Yeah.
no one's safe. Because at the moment, everyone feels safe.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was a good ride. But yeah, I just struggled with the final act when it was revealed who was behind it all in a very Scooby Doo esque way.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on Scream
Oh,
6?
look, to be honest, I'm a huge Scream fan
Me
from
too,
the
man.
early series, but I
Yeah,
bloody hated these ones. The last one was kind of okay. I loved what they
yeah,
did with Billy Loomis and bringing him the connection with him back, but it was just like I feel like they're just beating a dead horse here. They're just really kind of milking it for
yeah.
every fucking penny, and I just can't. I'm just so over it. I'm just like, really, you're trying now. You're like you're squeezing the last bit of blood out of last bit of wine out of the silver
Yeah,
handbag. It's
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
like,
I
just give it
feel I
up,
feel like
man.
I feel like that's where Halloween franchise went wrong lately too. The
Oh,
latter
that last
trilogy.
one, yeah. Don't even get me started
Yeah.
on that last
So
one.
I
Oh,
really, yeah, we're not going to go there. It's too painful, still too painful.
yeah.
But I feel like this is what it's a very dangerous line that the makers
Mm,
are walking along with Scream, and I worry that it could have the same outcome in the
yeah.
final installment. But we'll
Yeah,
see.
I would not
We'll
be
hold our breath.
surprised if where everybody just goes, "Oh, for fuck's sake," and it suddenly
They,
turns into like a
yeah,
completely different story, like what they did with Halloween, and it's just like,
I
uh,
kind of
yeah,
feel they're suggesting that, and I forget which of the two, the one that's not Jenny Ortega,
mm,
that there's that whole because she has the Loomis
oh yeah,
bloodline. I feel like they're going to play with the whole madness thing
so
there.
bloody predictable,
So
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
but we'll see. I'll
yeah,
be happily proven wrong. All
mm.
right, the next one we're going to come to is something that actually was released in 2022 if you were on the Northern Hemisphere, but over here in Australia came out just at the beginning of the year. And I have to say that Mr. Miles Davies and Mr. Saul Muerte
Uh,
are big, big fans of Ty West
oh
and what
yeah,
he is doing currently with his trilogy
trilogy,
arc.
yeah,
And that was Pearl, which we got given here. And this is your review, a very short
it
review. I
is.
say the review. It's the
It's a
prognosis, right? You
glowing
said
review.
it is. It says I really loved X. I was blown away by Pearl, and now I wait in eager anticipation for the third film in this mythology, Maxine.
Oh, I
So
can't wait.
it's good. It was good. Like, I think it measured up to X? No, but do I
All
feel like
right.
he pushed it into areas? I feel like I really need to revisit it because I loved
Yeah.
everything I loved about Pearl was the love song to the era, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he did the same with X too, and I absolutely adored Mia Goth in it.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was absolutely outstanding. And yeah, and the monologue sequence at the end is
Yeah.
just if there's an actress out there at the moment who could top that, I would argue. She's definitely at the
Yes.
forefront of her game,
I
and
think I
I
even mentioned,
cannot
I
wait
said
to
they're going to
see
be
where she goes.
studying that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. Like I do love the film. I like, and when I
Yeah.
say when I said I didn't love it as much as X, that's not to say I didn't love Pearl because I really did.
Yeah.
Um, it's just
It's
it's
hard
like
though.
I would shave half a star off. That's about it, right? It's not. It's really like I'm quibbling about
Yeah.
over it. It's a very minute thing, but really enjoyed it, and I want to see it again. Have to see it
It's
again.
funny though, because
So,
it's like they're two entirely different films. They
Yeah.
feel like they're two entirely different films, but they fit into the same universe and the same
Yes. Yeah.
mythology. But it's just tonally, they're just so drastically different in the way they're
Yeah.
storytelling. Like it's such an little indie character study that if you
Yeah.
didn't, if that wasn't, if you didn't have that connection to X, it would stand in its own right as this really fucking good film. But it also happens to be a prequel sequel type thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so clever.
Yes.
And
That's
just
right.
watching this, yeah.
No, it's
No, I
it's
loved it.
absolutely. I agree with you. I think it's a remarkable film, and I think Ty West is really in full strut mode at the moment, and I cannot
Mm,
wait to see where he goes with Maxine.
yeah.
All right. The next movie was one that went straight to Disney Plus, and starred Keira Knightley, and it was called The Boston Strangler, based on the real events of the Boston Strangler, and the two women reporters that were uncovering the identity of the serial killer in Boston at the time. And here was my little prognosis review. I said, this is not just a psychological thriller based on the true crimes of the Boston Strangler, but more importantly, the tale of two women who must stand strong in their beliefs and abilities to uncover the truth in a world dominated by the male
Mm,
perspective. Knightley and Kuhn deliver equally compelling performances, which is vital in casting Ruskin's message and vision across. At times, the story can trudge along a little, but thanks to the strength of the female leads, there's enough to keep the audience locked in to also find the truth behind the murders. Or the alleged truth. Sorry, I'm adding that bit
mm,
at the end. Because it is two people's viewpoint of who
mm.
they believed was behind it all. It is a compelling dramatic study. I don't know if you've called it yet, Miles.
Yeah, I have.
Um, what was your take on it then?
Oh, look, I watched it the same way because I watched Me Too. So,
Mm.
have you seen that one? It's the another two female
Yeah,
journalists, but they're uncovering the Harvey Weinstein thing, and it's
yeah,
just very similar, but
yes,
because they're both true stories. Two female journalists
yes,
battling their editors in the male dominated industry type thing, and it's
yeah,
so I was kind of lost on it, and I was a bit more interested in the Harvey Weinstein thing because I'd watched that unfold a bit more
100%.
closely.
Yeah,
But yeah, but it was okay. Thought it was
yeah.
okay. It felt like
There
a
were
bit more like
elements that,
Zodiac and
yeah, I was
a
about to
bit like
say
a
that
mix of a
there were elements
Zodiac
where they were
and
trying. Yeah, there
Mindhunter.
were 100%. There were elements where they were trying to be too Fincher-esque, I felt,
Yeah,
um, with it. And then as soon as you start doing that, you automatically want to compare. Okay.
yeah.
So I feel like that's the trap that it fell into. And I
Mm.
think I did. I think I mentioned that a little bit in my written review on the art of the film. But I
Even the
do
color
still
grade was very similar. So to that
exactly,
sort of
yeah.
David Fincher style that he sort of has, that greeny David Fincher style that he's got.
Yeah. I say that though, but I do still think I actually was really surprised by Knightley's performance. I don't tend to rate
Mm.
her as an actress, not all due respect,
Oh,
but in this I felt she was on par, really, really good.
yeah.
And I was really captivated by what she delivered. All right.
I'll watch anything with Carrie Coonan as well. So
Oh, me too, mate. Me too. I she's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely great. And that I felt like, and her portrayal in this too was
Mm.
really captivating. I found.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one's the big one, right? So we already kind of swooned and discussed this at the head, and that was Evil Dead Rise.
Oh
I
yeah.
think this may be my review, but I will read it. It says so much blood, energy and fun spawns from the latest Evil Dead feature. There are great nods to the original trilogy throughout, while still creating its own identity. You can tell that director Lee Cronin is a fan and brings that zest to every frame on screen. By taking the evil out of the woods and thrusting it into urban terrain, he has elevated the franchise to new heights. Um, it's we've already spoken about this and championed it in great
Yeah, yeah.
detail. Um, it is a fun ride. I have still only seen it once. I know I want to say it's due for its home entertainment release really soon. I just can't remember when off
Yeah,
the top of my head. But I definitely will want to relook at it. Um, I know in the lead up to its release, I went back and watched the original trilogy. I didn't quite get round to
yeah.
seeing the other reboot, Evil Dead. I didn't, and I own it, but I just still hadn't got round to doing it. So I may treat myself to that when the home entertainment release comes around, just to kind of tap into that playing field a little bit. But I
Mm,
think one thing that I felt really supported this latest one with Evil Dead Rise was tonally he got it so bang on.
yeah,
And I loved that. That was great.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of the originals. So, and then I went back and I mean, we saw it, and then I went back and I watched Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness, and I watched it with
Yeah.
my because my 13-year-old son is getting right into horrors at the moment. So we watched
Yeah.
Evil Dead. He goes, "What's a good horror movie that I need to watch?" And I went, "Okay, then." And I pretty much just like I said, "All right, I'm
Okay,
not going to
you're
show you
opening the
Evil Dead."
door.
Yeah, I'm not going to show you the Evil Dead 1 because of the tree rape scene. So I skipped
Yes.
straight to Evil Dead 2 and then went to Army of Darkness. And then we watched Evil Dead Rise. And he loved
Okay.
it. And because it was so fresh, you could see every single nod. And it was brilliant. It was so well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
To the Oldsmobile that she was driving, to, the eye, going down the
Yes.
kid's throat,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the nods,
It's so good.
And
I think
even
both
the
of
extra
us laughed
bits
out
like
loud in
mummies
that
with
bit.
the maggots now. Oh, what a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
so
so
good. It's
good.
so good. It'd
Mm.
be interesting to see where they take us next. But
Yes.
for this chapter, it was very good. All right.
It's so
Next up
Aussie
is
though,
it is very Aussie, which
because it's
we gotta
so many
love.
Australian actors in it. It's just
Yeah.
insane. And I was just like, this is an Aussie Evil Dead film.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I did like it. Um, Actually, on that note, have you seen a film called Tarnation by any chance? It was an Australian film.
No, no. You
Came out
good?
a fair while ago. It's really low budget, but it's very much got the same kind of energy as Evil Dead.
All
And
right.
on that note, I loved it. I thought it was really cool,
Oh,
and would
give it a
definitely
go.
recommend it. Very cool. Bearing in mind it's low budget, but good. All right. Next up is the return of Mia Goth in what would be the next installment of Cronenberg's universe, where he taps into the psychological trauma that we all face, and stretching that to the nth degree with implausibility. No, I'm gonna scrap that because I can't even say the word. Um, but to the point where it's difficult to fathom, and he likes to play around as his father did with the psyche. Although his father tended to play more in the body horror genre, whereas his son Brandon is very much into the mind, which is quite interesting to see where he goes with that. And the film was called Infinity Pool, by the way. Here's my take on it. It says, where Cronenberg endeavors to explore a clearly passionate subject matter, he loses some essence of what allowed him to shine through in his earlier features. That's not to say there isn't plenty on show here for his vision to triumph in places. The theme explored in Tainted Luxury through sour milk and burnt honey is a creative's dream. Skarsgård provides the anchor to drive the narrative through, but it's Goth who is in her element, providing another avenue to the unhinged mentality that she gloriously embellishes and never fails to disappoint. Infinity Pool is a curious delight which may pale in comparison to this writer's eyes against his other features, but no doubt this attempt is a worthy addition to his canon and will warrant further scrutiny when he gains a weightier backlog. I can't wait to see what the direction Cronenberg goes in next. So where I did like this film, I didn't feel like it was on the same kind of wavelength as his previous films. I cannot remember off the top of my head now the first film he did, but the second one he did, which was called Possessor, is still at the forefront of my mind, and I loved the journey that he took us on in that. And I felt like it was very much like a warped version of Inception. Was that the one that
Oh yeah,
uh
the
our friend did?
mind.
But
Yeah.
but more with a bit more of a spy agent kind of, and then exploring with the terrain of when one person enters another person's mind, how much of their own crap do they take with them to
Yeah.
affect their decision making, right? And I found that really, really cool. I don't know if you've seen Infinity Pool, but
No, I
it,
haven't.
it's I warrant what I would say watch it. But it's a weird mix. And Mia Goth is fantastic in it,
Mm,
absolutely amazing, right? I cannot champion her enough. Um, but yeah, it does become a little bit one trick pony in
yeah.
this particular instance, and I know we've said that a lot about some of these other films. But yeah, for what it's worth, it's still up there as I said in one of my high rated movies this year. But it's
Yeah.
just I wouldn't say it's on brilliance level. It's just on good good level. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't
Uh,
really given him a go yet. The Brandon Cronenberg, I tend to steer clear of the what they call the nepo babies, the the kids of directors and stuff. So
I get it,
a
I
big
get it, but there
co
is definitely like I
But
feel
yeah,
like if you're gonna go there, I feel like Possessor's the one to
mm,
go to. That definitely at this moment
okay,
of the three is the one that is simply brilliant. It's really, really well executed
mm,
storytelling in a really fucked up way. Um, and I
okay,
love that. And I don't think that's what I kind of maybe he's tipped already. Do you know what I mean? Like Antiviral, I think was the other one he did
oh,
um,
that's
before that, which did if it is a what do you call it, nepo babies?
yeah,
That you can see a lot of his father's voice in that particular film. There's a
yeah,
lot more of the body morphing stuff going on, and whereas I feel like Possessor was him stamping his own place and what he really is about.
mm,
And I feel like Infinity Pool stretches that a little bit further, but it
mm,
just dalliances a little bit too much. I feel like in that pool, that it
mm.
becomes a bit stagnant. Finally,
All
but there you
right.
go. Um, all right. So next one up is changing completely into a tone is Renfield. Which have you called Renfield before I
I
add my
have.
prognosis? Okay, cool. We'll hot pause on that for a second. So I'll do the prognosis bit first. So I this was one I pretty sure I wrote up. I said all eyes will no doubt focus on Nicolas Cage's portrayal of Dracula, which is suitably amped up to the nth degree, and with plenty of nods towards Max Schreck and Bela Lugosi incarnations. Cage tips it into onto the right side of camp without taking it too much into the extreme. Nicholas Hoult also taps into bumbling Britism to bring a modern Renfield to the screen, and when combined with Aquas, and I cannot say her name, Aquafina's dry wit,
Aquafina.
a thank you. A fun comic journey unfolds between them, and I love the energy between them. By the way, the action sequences are also
Mm.
gory and packed with humor, and decide a fairly mediocre storyline. The aforementioned elements allowed for a decent flick that does just enough to entertain without being clouded by ridicule. What was your take on it, my friend?
Oh, look, it's a fun film. I had
Yeah.
I had fun with this one. I was not expecting to take it seriously in the slightest, and it really
No
was just a
way.
wacky
Yeah.
horror. And
Yeah.
but everybody was great in it. You know, it had its moments. It was gory as fucking parts and funny in parts. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't laugh out a hilarious romp, but
No.
it was an amusing enough movie. So, and Nicholas Holt was great in it. He's good in
Yeah, he
everything
was
that he
good.
does.
Yeah, yeah, he
I'm a big
was.
fan of
Yeah.
his. And Aquafina is I dig her. I think she's hilarious in anything that
She's
she does.
awesome. I
So
I
yeah,
just
no,
love her.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, dry wit is great.
Yeah,
She's so
yeah.
good at those deadpan kind of comments.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film.
yeah.
Um,
It took a
good
different
fun film.
spin to it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, the next one I put in here, I I'm probably being presumptuous, but I'm pretty sure you haven't seen this film. It's called The Influencer, and I mentioned it purely because it got released on Shudder,
Yeah.
and it's one of those ones that was a pleasant surprise for me. Here's what I took on it. I said, "There's more than meets the eye to this mysterious thriller. Beneath the beautiful facade of the Thailand scenery and behind the exterior of the personalities we portray on the social platform is a dark and sinister tale. Cassandra Naud is particularly gripping as the mysterious CW surprisingly hooked me into the web of deceit." Um, yeah, there's not a lot to say about this one without giving too much away, but it does play along the whole line of you never really know who you meet when you are going through social media, and
Mm.
how to manipulate that into a very cool kind of serial killer component, and with enough twists and turns there too. You end up liking douchebags and wanting them to equally trump the other people, but at the same time want to see their comeuppance. So it kind of does play with your allegiance a little bit, which is kind of nice. I thought there was a good energy to it anyway. So if you do want to check that out, I do recommend it. It's on Shudder at the moment, which was a horror streaming platform.
Mm.
Going from
Okay.
that though, moving into at the moment, I'm going to say is my turkey movie of the year. And that is a film called The Black Demon. Have you seen this one yet, buddy?
No, which is this one?
Okay, so it's Josh Lucas is in it, right?
Demon.
And it's about
Oh
a
no.
megalodon that attacks a family who end up being on an oil rig.
All right.
Um, right now, I'll read you my prognosis, and I reckon you can pretty much sum up where I lie with it. I've gone. The film's creatives need to seriously go back to the drawing board and reevaluate their storytelling methods because this film is seriously going to need a bigger plot. The Black Demon slaps its morals and predictable narrative round the face like a 50, 60 foot gigantic megalodon. It was painful to watch this film. Really, really painful.
Yeah.
Um, it's it just keeps smacking you around the face with its whole ecological message. That you're just like, all right,
Oh, right.
I get it. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
because I'm
bad.
looking at
It's
the
really bad.
synopsis and it goes oil company inspector, and I'm like, really? That's a bit specifically anti-environment.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It
I
really
get
is.
it now.
I just wish they dialed that down and just went and told the story. Like you get it, like you don't need to really go overboard with it. And
Yeah.
it was just so in your face that I was just like, oh my God, put me out of my misery. So unfortunately, that film is not a front runner at the moment. It's definitely on the back end of this year.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Then moving on to another film, which I know we both haven't seen yet. So, which was the latest of Stephen King's books turned films called The Boogeyman. Our friend Anthony went along to the advanced screen of this to write up the review. So we can only trust on his take on it. I will watch it because I love Stephen King. And yes, I know
Mm.
that when it comes to movie adaptations, it's a mixed bag. And I know that often with King, you
Mm.
get let down by his final act. But here was what Anthony said about it. He said, starts slow, starts cliched, starts too hard, but you do stick around to see how it ends. So it feels like this one's a bit too on the nose at the beginning, but has a worthy tale to tell. So it'll be
Mm.
interesting to see when we do kind of delve into that one. I'm kind of keen to check that one out when I get time. All right, the next
Yeah.
one. We're down to our last two movies that we're going to quickly talk about. The next one is from homegrown talent in Australia, and that is director Alice Meow Mackay in what is her second film called Bad Girl Boogie. Now, yes, this is incredibly low budget, but part of the appeal of this film is the grit behind it because it's has to be shot in a low budget way. It does a lot to cut to the teeth of the message that she's trying to put across. And I find it quite interesting. Here was my prognosis. I've said Alice Meow Mackay's sophomore feature is just as painful and raw as her predecessor, but armed with knowledge and a strong core message, she manages to craft a tale that resonates. The gritty and dark side of humanity is exposed behind the mask we all wear, and Mackay proves once again that she not only has a message to share, but can do so with an impact that will make you sit up and take note and listen. I actually quite enjoy her storytelling. Her first film was called So Vam, which
Yeah.
looked at the drag scene culture. Um, a lot of her stuff is about social misfits or so-called outsiders and providing them with a voice, and I think she does it really, really well. I feel like she has no filmmaking experience, but she is learning very fast on the job. And given
Mm.
that this is her second film, I already see marked improvement between So Vam and Bad Girl Boogie. Um, and I feel like the longer that she stays in the game and starts making movies with these messages in mind, she's definitely going to be a talent to watch out for. So I do recommend it if you, it's on most streaming demand platforms. So do go check that one out. Highly, highly recommend. If you want something and you're not sure what to watch, it's a good fun ride. All right, and then the final one
Okay.
that we're going to talk about is another bit of a homegrown one, but more across the seas to New Zealand, and that's the film called The Tank. Um, Here's my take on it. I've said there is plenty to draw you in on the surface value with strong performances, beautiful scenery, and decent creature effects. And the story weaves an ecological moral with greater depth than the Black Demon, um, deigned to inflict upon us. The execution, however, stays a little too close to predictability with some of the plot choices. It's engaging enough, however, and sits nicely in the middle of the road, playing it safely, placing the family under threat despite not offering anything new. I don't know if you've seen this one. It had a very kind of
No, I
uh,
haven't.
short cinema release, but I want to say that it's getting home entertainment release this month coming. So I reckon
Right.
it's worthy watching, but like I said, it does fall a little in the predictable path line.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's a good kind of fun film all the same.
It's set in the
Uh,
70s, right?
yeah, set in the 70s. Yeah. So, and it
Oh,
has,
all
like I
right.
said, an
That's interesting.
ecological message at mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Plays it a little safe, but I feel like it's still one of those films. You've got nothing else on, give it a go, sort of thing. I feel like it does enough
Mm.
to keep you watching, but it doesn't necessarily tantalize.
Yeah,
That,
right.
on that note, wraps up 2023 so far. So, and also the
Mm.
first segment of our new full moon sessions. We're hopefully going to play this out. This is the first time we're doing these, so we're going to wrap up our first segment here, and I'm going to hopefully set up a couple of other things to have you guys flick through on our playlist, which will attach this before we then bookend with our final segment, which will look at what's next or fresh kills in the movie zone of films that are coming out in July and potentially beyond. Stick
Mm.
around and check out some of those other things. So one of the other segments we're looking at is our Sounds of Horror segment, which I team up with Ben Skinner from Movie Nerds to talk about horror movie scores that are out there as well. And I'm going to dabble with a little bit around looking at the history of Dracula on the big screen as well as a bit of a segment because of the recent Renfield film and the upcoming Voyage of the Demeter. So, yeah, stick around and check out those segments. Until then, this is us. Until we see you on the flip side of the bookend, I'm Saul Muerte, and this is Myles Davies.